On this episode, we drop in on the director of Safekids in Auckland, New Zealand. Then we talk with a member of the Auckland City Council. We visit a sensory garden in the Auckland Domain. The Cyclist Advocates Network lobbies for better facilities. A bicycle commuter has to take the ferry because the Harbor Bridge has no bicycle facilities. Another bicyclist finds happiness without a car. Finally, we look at automobile dealers who abuse pedestrians. Stay tuned. We're in Auckland talking with Helen McCracken, who's director of Safekids. What is Safekids?
Safekids is an advocacy organisation which is the injury prevention arm of the Starship Hospital, which is the purpose-built child hospital here in Auckland. And we really focus on a range of strategies to prevent injuries across the board to children, unintentional injuries, the kind we usually refer to as accidents.
What sort of problem is there with children and crashes with vehicles?
Well, you mean in terms of pedestrians and motor vehicle passengers?
Oh.
Both, okay. Well, traffic crashes are certainly the major cause of children being killed in New Zealand, and roughly 40% of those injuries are pedestrian injuries. And we don't do very well compared to other countries, and the OECD countries, the 29 countries in the OECD, UNICEF has just put out a report, and we come fourth to bottom, so we're not doing very well in terms of traffic crashes.
What sort of factors in the environment would you look at when you're trying to prevent pedestrian crashes with children?
Pedestrian crashes? We would look at things like volume and speed of traffic, numbers of parked cars on the road, and really modifications to the roading environment. We know who's most at risk. We've got good information on that. We know it's 5 to 9 year olds who are most at risk, that mainly these injuries happen in legitimate journeys to and from school. They happen at that time of the day, between 3 and 5 p.m. We know boys are more at risk. We know Māori and Pacific Island children are at greater risk than Pākehā children or European ethnic children. So we've got a pretty clear profile of who's most at risk. So that takes us pretty clearly into the things we need to do about it.
What can you do about it?
What can you do about it? I can talk about some of the things that we've been involved in. That might be one way of talking about it. As I said, we're an advocacy organisation. We also provide information, which is part of advocacy, and work with coalitions and other organisations around the country. So one of the things we do is we provide information on pedestrian injuries to other organisations. We produce a fact sheet on pedestrian injuries, on how many there are, what you can do about it. We work in a program called Safe Routes to School. We actually umbrella a program called Safe Routes to School, which came from Australia originally, and we've adapted it to the New Zealand environment. And this picks up on what I was talking about before, that a major area of risk is children's journey to and from school. So this targets areas of Auckland, low decile areas where traffic crashes are most common in comparison to other parts of Auckland. And that program looks at enforcement, education and engineering initiatives, and at organisations working together. So it involves ourselves, it involves local authorities, police, really, and schools, of course, working together to try and identify the risks out there to children and the environment, and to make changes which will help reduce the risk. So that's a really exciting program, and there's some possibility of that going national. It's coming towards the end of its evaluation period now. So that's something we do. We also have been involved in a program called Kids Safe Week. I think that happens around a lot of countries in the world. And most years we have a traffic-related theme. This year, for instance, it's motor vehicle passengers. Next year it'll be pedestrians. We had pedestrians a couple of years ago, and there's a poster behind you, which you might be able to see, where we actually focused on the school gate as a danger area. And we put out a lot of information to schools, one strategy became particularly controversial. We suggested perhaps dubbing in people who are repeat offenders are double parking outside schools on the no parking yellow lines. And that had quite an impact. It really got people talking. So sometimes you need to be just a little bit controversial in order to get action. So that's another thing we do. We work with organisations in Kids Safe Week every year to get a road safety theme out there. We've produced packs about particular areas of child injury, and one that we've just done is on drive-overs. That might require a little bit of explanation. Around 75 or 80% of child pedestrian injury and deaths occur off-road, and they occur mainly on children's own home driveways. And typically, a dad or a mum will be reversing up the drive and not see the child and run them over. 4 or 5 deaths a year in New Zealand from drive-overs. So we've been working with paediatricians at the Starship Hospital, and we're going to be putting together an advocacy campaign to target both councils and central government to see what they can do to make to lessen that risk of injury. Things like fencing off children's play areas, looking at the whole issue of inbuilt housing and shared driveways. So quite a lot to be done in that area.
A report came out last year that looked at pedestrians, I guess, of all ages in New Zealand.
Yeah.
What was the report? What did it find out?
The New Zealand Pedestrian Profile, yes, this was, as I understand it, called for by the Land Transport Safety Authority here in New Zealand, and it really looked at how pedestrians fare in this country. And we see it as a very valuable document. What it did show is what we knew already, but it's good to have it put together so well in an organised way, is that we don't share our roads well, that we don't treat our vulnerable pedestrians in particular, and that's children and older people, people with disabilities. We don't treat them well. We need considerable environmental modification to make our roads safer. So we're really using the pedestrian profile as an advocacy tool, and we don't want it gathering dust on shelves. We want to have it out there on the table of decision makers, and there are some encouraging signs. The government has released last year a document called Vision 2010, which is their road safety strategy for the next 10 years. And in there they talk about vulnerable pedestrians, and they talk about some of the things that we need to do. And they're starting to sort of come to organisations like ours and saying, well, look, what are some of the targets that we can actually put in this plan to achieve safer roads for pedestrians? So we see the pedestrian profile as a really important document, and one which it's up to organisations like our own to really keep up there in the front, on the front burner.
Looking forward to 2010, what actions would you like to see the government taking?
We'd like to see strategies across those broad spectrums that I've talked about before: education, environment, and enforcement. We want to see safer crossing points as an example of environmental modification, safer crossing points for children. We'd like to see urban speed zones in place, particularly around schools. We'd like to see a program like Safe Routes to School networked perhaps across the country, and possibly widened from just being Safe Routes to School to safer walking around your community. There is some support for that concept of taking the model of Safe Routes to School and looking at how we can make a whole community safer for pedestrians to move about, and we think that's quite exciting.
We're in Auckland talking with Mallory Ledbetter, who's a member of the Auckland City Council.
Hello.
A few years ago, Auckland came out with a cycle and walking strategy. What was in that?
Oh, it's a blueprint really to highlight the possible routes that people can use for walking, and to put walking and cycling up there with the other means of transport as an important mode, and one that needed highlighting and needed developing. So it includes both the existing walkway possibilities, and it's a way of looking forward to the future, to establishing new connections and new walkways that will make sure that there is a really good network throughout the city.
What were the sort of shortcomings it found, and what sort of opportunities are there to improve things for pedestrians?
Well, I guess it's a question of using. We have many very nice recreational walkways in our parks, but what was really missing, I think, was the links between the different parks and through the street area. So it's quite good really to highlight some of the possibilities for walking through the streets and linking up with the parks and making a journey which is both direct and pleasant and safe for people.
And the City Council works with committees. Which committees were in charge of walking issues?
Okay, well, with the new council, which was elected at the end of 1998, there were two committees set up which both had responsibilities for walking. One was the Parks and Recreation Committee, and the other was the Transport Committee. So that's when we decided to set up the Walkable Advisories Group, because we could see that would be one way of bringing together the two aspects, if you like, the sort of walking which is seen as part of recreation and the walking which is a form of transportation. And we thought that the people who were really the best to form the backbone of that group would be the people from community boards in the local areas, because that's our most immediate form of local government in Auckland. And it's people on the community boards who really know their communities and who know their road networks and their walkways networks best. So each community board appointed a representative to come to the Walkable Advisories Group, and that's worked well. What we've done is a combination of meetings where we sort of talk about strategies and advocacy platforms that we want to pursue, and also we've held regular field trips so that our advocacy, we hope, is informed by our absolutely practical experience of walking some of the routes. And what we do is we just we ask one member of the group in turn to plan the next field trip, and we have a lot of fun as well as finding out what the walkways are really like.
You have the different levels of government all the way from the community boards, the city, the region, and the national government.
Yes.
What are the roles of each of those in creating a walkable city?
Well, they all have a role, really. I guess the regional council, because its responsibilities in the New Zealand setting are very much for the environment and for transport planning. So they have a very important role in terms of promoting walking as a form of transport, and for that overall regional strategy. At Auckland City level and community board level, we can get right down to the absolute nitty-gritty and talk about the need for very small links sometimes, but links which can nevertheless make a big difference and make it possible for people to walk rather than use their cars, to access shopping facilities, to access swimming pools, a whole range of things.
One of the things you have here in Auckland, which I guess would fall into the recreational category, is the coast-to-coast walk. What is that?
Yes. The coast-to-coast walkway's been around a long time. In fact, I think it's been around so long that people started to forget about it, but it basically takes you right from the Waitemata Harbour right across Auckland City, and it takes in two of our most significant and popular volcanoes, Mongawhau and Mongakiki, and then takes you right through to the Manukau. So it's a lovely walk. It links through some very pleasant suburban streets and also through several parkways, and as I say, the two major volcanoes as well. So it's a very attractive walk. It's quite a challenging walk, and we sometimes suggest to people that they don't have to do it all at once. You can do it a bit one day and a bit another day, and it's a very good overview of Auckland City. It's a good tourist attraction, and it costs nothing, of course.
If I were to come back to Auckland in 10 years, what would you like to have accomplished by then?
Well, I'd like to see far more people walking and using walking as part of their daily pattern, both for its environmental benefits and for its well-known health benefits, of course. And perhaps people using walking in conjunction with all the other modes, public transport, cycling. Cycling is also going through a bit of a revival at the moment. So, yeah, I'd like to see walking really established. And some of our hidden gems, because we do have some lovely little walkways through little bits of reserve and park that aren't well known, I'd like to see them much better used. That would be really great, I think. better known and better used and better maintained.
One of the joys of walking is the ability to stop and smell the flowers along the way. That's the concept behind the sensory garden in the Auckland Domain. It's built back in 1970 by the Lions Club. You have plants there not for their bright colors, but for their smell, their taste, and their texture. Planters up a few feet off the ground, so you don't have to bend over very far to smell the flowers. In fact, it's just about the perfect height for someone in a wheelchair. And there are flowers there that have a little color, but more importantly, there are plants with distinctive smells, distinctive tastes, and textures. Broad fuzzy leaves, narrow needle-like leaves, little tiny round leaves. Anyone, sighted or not sighted, can go through this garden and come away with an experience for a number of the senses. We're in Auckland talking with Adrian Croucher of the Cycling Advocates Network. What is the network?
Cycling Advocates Network was started about 3 or 4 years ago, basically mostly for lobbying government organisations and trying to get more recognition for the needs of cyclists in New Zealand's roads. Currently the state of planning for cyclists in New Zealand is pretty minimal, and we're basically trying to raise awareness of the whole issues that that cyclists face and get something done about them.
And that's a national group. Do you have local groups here in Auckland as well?
Yeah, all over the country, in most of the all the main cities, and even some of the smaller ones now, groups are popping up. The whole organisation is actually growing quite fast. We have, I have maybe 20 new members joining every week from all around the country.
Now, what are some of the activities you do to raise an awareness of cycling and cycling issues?
Well, there's really two ways that we work, mostly. Some of our activities are directed towards the decision makers, the politicians, the planners, the engineers, and making sure that they know what cyclists need and keep those things in mind when they're designing projects or if they're fixing up old ones. So that's one thing we do, lots of meetings, that sort of stuff. The other thing we do is things directed towards the public, which tend to be events-based things, either publicity events, trying to attract media coverage, or things where we just approach members of the public directly and or have fun events like bike rides and just information dissemination through stalls and displays and things like that.
And I'm here just a week too late to catch one of your big events. What happened here last month?
Last week, in fact, it was National Bike Week in New Zealand. This is not just organised by Cycling Advocates Network, but a lot of the councils around the country get behind it as well and organise events. We had a large bikers breakfast last week, where anyone who turned up in the middle of the city with a bike could have a free breakfast, and with lots of displays and speeches and things like that, and prizes given out, that sort of thing, and a number of sort of fun bike rides and stuff like that, where we turned up and made sure that our brochures were being handed out.
What's the importance of the fun side, the rides and so on, for the serious side? How do those fit together in an organisation like CAN?
You really need both. I think that's something we found out, particularly in Auckland, is that you can do a lot of work with the serious stuff, going to the meetings and writing the letters and putting the submissions in and all that sort of thing, but you don't get a sense of group cohesion like that. You don't really build a group just with work. You've got to have the social side of it as well, having some video evenings and tea and biscuits and fun bike rides and things like that to get a sense of group. Otherwise people don't really feel like they belong and they're not so keen to get involved. So you've really got to have both.
If I was to come back to Auckland in 10 years and you had your wish list fulfilled, what would you have happen in the next decade?
Well, one big thing which everyone talks about in Auckland is the Harbor Bridge, the bridge crossing between the southern and northern parts of the city. where currently there's no cycle or pedestrian access. One thing we'd really like to see is access for cyclists and pedestrians over that bridge. Other things that are starting to happen right now, just more cycleways and bike lanes, also in the city, where cyclists can feel a bit safer than they can at the moment. And also the sort of more mundane things like the way intersections are designed, because most accidents happen at intersections and sometimes it's just a result of a bad design. So there's always the ongoing process of getting things like that redone in a safer way.
We're in Auckland talking with Paul Doyle. You live up on the North Shore. How does a bicyclist get from downtown up to the North Shore?
With great difficulty, basically. There is a major bridge that goes across to Auckland City with something like 6, 7, 8 lanes. But unfortunately these lanes are all for cars or trucks or buses. So you have to cycle off to a further site called Devonport, where they've got a ferry that can take you into the city, and that costs a little bit more money. That's $5 each way, and luckily they do have racks on there. You are allowed to take your bike for no extra charge, so that's good. And also pleasant is the ride, because it's, you're out on the harbour, it's nice, and that's good. But for me, living right up on the northern edge of the North Shore, I'm going something like 22 kilometres to get in, and having to add the waiting time for the ferry and the ferry time, you end up with an hour and a half or more to get into work. So pleasant, but it's not something you want to do when you're in a rush. Yeah.
They've got buses that go over the bridge. Is there any provision for bicycles on buses?
Well, apparently there was some years ago. They had a small bus that could take you over if you got to the collection point, a little mini bus, and you'd hop on that and off you go. But presently, no, there's nothing. And when you do catch the normal buses, you're not allowed to take your bike on the bus. So really, that's not an option for you. Yeah.
Has there been any discussion of possibly putting a pedestrian and bicycle lane on the bridge so that people could get across, like you have on, let's say, the Sydney Harbor Bridge?
Well, there is discussion on it, and it is hopeful. It's got a funny history, the Harbour Bridge. It actually started off with only, I think it was 4 lanes, and they built that in the 1950s. And within about 10 years, the fact that you could get across to the North Shore reasonably easily in your car meant that the whole northern side boomed, and within 10 years it just wasn't big enough, and they had to clip on another 4 lanes, and that became known as the Nippon clip-ons, because the Japanese invented it and put that on there. So we ended up with 8 lanes. Unfortunately, still with 8 lanes, none of those were available for cyclists, and to get an extra lane for cyclists or pedestrians, at the moment it's a big fight, because they're claiming that the money that they'll put into that could be spent on more motorways or just about anything besides something that's sustainable. So we're ending up now with a lot of appeals to council, asking them, to further study this. And there is positives, because they're putting a bus lane through, and part of the proposal there could include a cycleway. So we're hopeful, and we're annoying them, but it's just a matter of time, hopefully. Yeah.
We're talking with Sally McCara. You used to own a car, now you just own a bike. How'd you make the transition?
Well, for a start, I didn't want to have a car, but I kind of got passed one from my sister, who was trying to get rid of it, and at the time it seemed like a reasonable idea, but I was a bit uncertain, because I'd ridden a bike for a long time in a city that was reasonably good for cycling. But when I had this car, I used it for driving around a few times, and every time I drove anywhere I thought, this is this great big hunk of metal that could really easily kill someone if they suddenly ran out in front of me, or I couldn't stop in time. And I was always super aware of how dangerous a car is to drive. And I just I was always uneasy every time I drove anywhere. That was one reason I was uneasy, and the other was because I knew that even though it was really, because you could just sit there behind the wheel and relax and just forget about everything, and it was quite fun driving around, but I was always constantly aware of the fossil fuels burning up and what I was doing, how I was contributing to global warming and so on, and making nasty smells and nasty noises and so on. And so I just, after a while, one time I was going to go overseas for a while, I thought, right, this is it, I'm selling the car. I mean, I left the car sitting for like 3 months at a time without using, so it had to be restarted, and it was all, it didn't get used enough, so it was obviously not really for me, that relationship. So
How do you manage to get by without a car? I'm sure a lot of people would say they could never give up their car. How do you get things done?
Well, I've chosen to live reasonably central in town to where I go to university, so it's only a 15-minute ride. And when I do the shopping, I have touring panniers. I put all the shopping in there. I can shop for 5 people. I can buy groceries for 5 people and fit them in those panniers. Feed 5 people for a week from that. So I don't find shopping a problem at all, and there's no problem with parking. So it's pretty good. And I find everything I do, I just plan my life around it, and I don't expect to be running around doing 100 things in one day. So it actually is an easier lifestyle, I reckon, because you're not quite so busy.
People might think they could never manage to ride a bike, that it's just something that maybe some other people do, but they don't. What are the cultural obstacles to having more people bike riding?
It seems to be just a whole mindset that you drive everywhere. I mean, I've seen our neighbour driving 200 metres to go and pick up some milk from the corner store, so some people just don't think about using their legs anymore, which is really sad, because people are actually getting diseases and dying from not getting enough exercise now. So it's a difficult situation. If you own a car, then you feel you have to use it to make it worth all the money you pour into it. So get rid of it.
One of the little annoyances pedestrians face in cities all over the world is cars parked on the sidewalk. Auckland is no exception. You don't have to go very far before you find an automobile blocking the footpath. Where do autos learn to behave that way? We think they learn young, right at the dealership. You can find any number of automobile dealers in the Auckland area that show off their wares on the footpath out front. There's no consideration whatever for pedestrians they have to get by. Even the Vespa dealership has their little scooters blocking the sidewalk out front. A little enforcement could go a long ways.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.